My parents always treated my brother like he was destined for greatness, while I was the one they blamed whenever things went wrong. When he lost his scholarship and wrecked my car, they still stood by him, going so far as to take on a massive debt to clean up his mess. That was the moment I decided I'd had enough. I refused to help and walked away for good. They built him up like a god, poured every ounce of their life, every dollar, every dream into making him a star. But the foundation was rotten, and when it finally crumbled, they didn't just lose him, they lost everything and tried to drag me down with them. The streetlights outside cast long, lonely shadows across my apartment wall. A distant siren wails, a fleeting sound swallowed by the quiet hum of the city. It's late, and the silence echoes with the kind of story you only tell when the world is asleep, a raw, bitter truth that still burns, even after all this time. My name is Jason, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the black sheep. The quiet, analytical one, often labeled a bad influence since birth. My younger brother, Tyler, was the chosen one. 18 years old, a basketball prodigy, destined for Duke on a full scholarship. My parents treated him like LeBron James with a perfect GPA, their golden ticket, their entire identity. Then he couldn't lay off the weed. He got caught, pointed a finger at me, and suddenly, I was the villain in a story where I wasn't even in the same state. What unfolded next was a darkly comical tragedy, a slow-motion car crash of denial and misplaced priorities. Karma, it turns out, wears steel-toed boots. You need some background to really get it. When I was 16, I got grounded for being 30 minutes late for curfew. Not an hour, not two, just 30 minutes. My mother looked at me like I'd committed a felony. A few years later, when Tyler was finally old enough to start going out, he'd come home at 2 a.m. after some big basketball win, smelling vaguely of something sweet and illicit. And instead of punishment, my mom would be in the kitchen at 2 a.m., practically glowing, making him a stack of pancakes, telling him he earned it. That was us in a single snapshot. I sneeze wrong. I'm the disappointment. Tyler screws up. He gets a bedtime snack and a pep talk. The golden child treatment wasn't subtle. Designer sports gear, unwavering attention, endless money, constant praise, it all flowed to Tyler like a river. Me? I learned early that trying to compete was like running a race where the other guy already had the medal around his neck. My parents were so laser-focused on forging the perfect champion out of Tyler, I may as well have been a background extra in my own family's drama. Every weekend was some faraway tournament. Every spare dollar was poured into his training camps. Every dinner conversation was a highlight reel of his stats. By the time it was my turn to head off to college, my parents basically shrugged. Good luck, they said. No savings account for me. No, we've been planning for this. Not even a single tour of campuses. Nothing. If I wanted to go, it was entirely on me. So I hustled. I applied for scholarships like it was a second job, stacked up part-time gigs all through high school, and signed every loan for myself. I was literally sitting at our kitchen table, filling out FAFSA paperwork, while my parents were out at one of Tyler's late-night practices, texting the family group chat about how promising he looked. When the acceptance letters started rolling in, my mom actually asked if I could maybe take a gap year to save money. Translation: we're not paying for it. I gritted my teeth. I cobbled it together with grants and worked every single summer. Tuition, books, rent, I covered all of it. If I wanted food in my fridge, it came from my paycheck, not theirs. And the bitter irony? They were bragging to neighbors about how Tyler was destined for Duke, while their other son was busting his ass just to keep the lights on in his crappy student apartment. I didn't get a single dime for my education. Not because they couldn't afford it, but because every cent was tied up in gas money, elite trainers, and custom sneakers for their golden boy. Meanwhile, Tyler got his SAT prep paid for, his meals planned out, and a personal chauffeur to practice. That's the level of imbalance we're talking about. So, here's where things really started to unravel. Tyler's high school had this random drug testing policy. And by random, I mean it was finally Tyler's turn to pee in a cup. Now, Tyler isn't exactly discreet about his habits. The dude smokes. Not every single day, but enough that anyone with eyes or a nose could figure it out. I knew it. Some of his teammates knew it. Hell, I'm pretty sure even our dog knew it.
So, boom. Test day.
Positive for weed. Apparently, Tyler tried to play it cool when they told him, but the school called home anyway. Before my parents could hear it from anyone else, Tyler decided to get ahead of it by confessing. Which, in theory, sounds smart. Except instead of just owning it, he went full reptilian survival mode. He told my parents, "Yeah, I tested positive, but it's not just me. Jason smokes, too." And suddenly, I was on trial for something that happened hundreds of miles away. Here's the funny part. I hadn't smoked in months. I had an internship lined up that did random testing, so I'd already quit for the summer. But that didn't matter. In my parents' brains, if Tyler screwed up, it was automatically my fault. Like I was mailing him blunts from out of state or something. They lost their minds. My dad acted like Tyler had just turned into a career criminal. My mom went on about him, throwing away his future. But once Tyler dropped my name, the focus shifted. Fast, suddenly. I wasn't just the black sheep. I was the shepherd leading little lamb Tyler astray. Jason was always the bad influence. Tyler wouldn't be doing this if he didn't see you doing it first. I'm sitting there on FaceTime with him like, hello, I live 500 miles away. The last time I saw Tyler was Christmas. But nope. Logic doesn't matter when parents are in full panic mode. Then came the grand punishment plan. Tyler? He had to take some online drug counseling course. That's it. Pretty much a PowerPoint slideshow with some guy droning about the dangers of weed. He clicked through it while eating chips and called it a day.
Me?
They decided they were going to drug test me, too. To be fair, their words, not a joke. I live in another state, pay my own bills, do my own thing, and they wanted to randomly drug test me whenever I came home. Like I was still 16, sneaking beers in the basement. And here's the kicker. If I failed their little home drug test, they'd take away my car. Now, to be clear, it was technically theirs. They'd given it to me when I started grad school because I couldn't afford one. But I covered all the costs, gas, insurance, maintenance. They didn't put a dime into it. Still, they held on to that "we own it" card like it was the nuclear launch codes. I actually laughed when they said it. My mom tried to act tough, but then she slipped and said she'd probably tell me in advance before they tested me. Like, what's even the point at that stage? It's not drug testing, it's playing pretend. Meanwhile, Tyler was sitting in the background, looking smug as hell. The dude just ratted me out, and now he was watching me get dragged, a little smirk playing on his lips like he'd just pulled off the heist of a century. I wanted to reach through the screen and smack him. Tyler's punishment was basically a slap on the wrist. The school wasn't going to call the cops or anything. No record, no suspension. He just had to click through his counseling course, and that was it.
Done.
Over. But my parents acted like his life was hanging by a thread, and mine was the scissors. Every time Tyler made a face or looked upset, they'd remind me how I set a bad example. Like, nah, the kid failed a test because he's dumb enough to smoke when he knows he could be called. That's not on me. And the thing is, Tyler knew exactly what he was doing. He used me as a shield, threw me under the bus to make himself look less bad.
And it worked.
At least in the short term. My parents bought it because of course they did. They always do. Suddenly, the story wasn't Tyler failed a drug test. The story was the school system is unfair and Jason probably corrupted him. They were telling relatives that Tyler was so stressed from being scouted, and of course, kids make mistakes, but he still has such a bright future. Meanwhile, my name kept getting dragged into every sentence like I was Voldemort. You know, Jason smoked too. That's where Tyler got the idea. Tyler's just under pressure because he's chasing scholarships. Jason never understood that kind of pressure. It was like they were rewriting history in real time, turning Tyler into the victim and me into the bad guy. And the crazy thing? They actually seemed proud of him for owning up to failing the test. Like he was brave, bro. He only confessed because the school already had the pee in the cup. Every phone call from my parents had the same vibe. Scold Jason. Reassure Tyler. My mom literally said to me, "We just want to make sure you don't drag your brother down with you." I'm in a whole other state, pulling 60-hour weeks at my internship, clean as a whistle because I have to be for my job. But sure, I'm the one sabotaging his varsity career from afar, apparently using telepathic blunts. And then came the big one, college acceptance season. If there's one thing you need to know about my parents, it's that Tyler's college prospects were their entire personality. My dad would bring it up in line at the grocery store. Yeah, my younger boys got scouts from Duke calling him. Full ride, you know. Oh, and my older son's in grad school somewhere, too. They weren't just bragging either. They'd been grooming him for this Duke program since he could dribble. My mom turned into a full-time chauffeur, shuttling him to private trainers, weekend tournaments 3 towns over, and nutritionists who charged more per hour than I make in a week. Dad was out in the driveway at 6 a.m., rebounding shots for him, rain or shine, like he was coaching the Lakers instead of a lanky teenager with a half-decent jump shot. Every family decision, vacations, finances, even what kind of car to buy, revolved around what was best for Tyler's future. If he had a game, we all had to cancel plans. If he had practice, dinner waited. The message was loud and clear. His education and basketball dreams weren't just his priority. They were everyone's priority. They had him on this pedestal so high, I'm surprised he didn't get altitude sickness. His scholarship was the crown jewel, the ticket that proved they raised him right and that all those years of ignoring me had been the correct parenting strategy. So after the drug test fiasco, they went into full PR mode. They started monitoring Tyler like hawks, but also protecting him at every turn. We're not going to let one slip-up ruin everything, my mom would say, like the universe had conspired against him. And, I mean, I get it. Drugs and sports don't exactly mix. One bad test can tank your eligibility, and colleges like Duke aren't about to risk their program's reputation on a kid who can't keep it clean. My dad read one article about athletes losing scholarships over weed and acted like Tyler had been caught trafficking heroin across state lines. Suddenly, his biggest fear wasn't that his son was messing up his own health. It was that their golden ticket to a free education might disappear. So, what do? Do they sit Tyler down and tell him to grow up? Of course not. Instead, they start rewriting the narrative. They told the school it was just a false positive. They told the neighbors that kids make mistakes. And when it came to explaining why Tyler might have tried weed in the first place, oh, they had the perfect scapegoat.
Me.
You know, Jason was smoking, too. That's probably where Tyler picked it up. Tyler's just under pressure because he's chasing Duke. Jason never understood that kind of responsibility. Problem was, everyone knew he'd been smoking. The lie was never going to hold up if anyone looked closer. I swear they were bending reality in real time. Somehow Tyler failing a test became another opportunity to remind me that I was the family disappointment. The messed up part? Tyler loved it. He was walking around the house like he'd pulled off some heroic sacrifice instead of just failing a basic urine test. He even said to me on FaceTime, smirking, "They think you're the reason I tried it." Thanks, man. You really took the bullet for me. Yeah, buddy.
Keep thinking that.
Keep smoking, too. Because while they were treating you like a misunderstood prodigy, I knew something you clearly didn't. Those top athletic programs test harder than your high school ever did. And unlike mom and dad, they don't make excuses. And here's the part that really made me laugh. They were still threatening to drug test me every time I came home. Like Tyler's the one who failed, but I'm the one who might lose my car if I don't pee in a cup on command. That's like if your dog pees on the carpet and your parents put you in the crate. The irony wasn't lost on me. The kid who actually failed was coddled, while I was hundreds of miles away, somehow the bigger threat. Meanwhile, Tyler was living it up. He knew he was untouchable. You could see it in the way he carried himself.
Smug. Cocky.
Like he'd found a cheat code for life. He even joked about it to me once on FaceTime. Man, thanks for taking the heat. They really think you're the bad guy. I wanted to choke him through the screen. But here's the thing, I didn't even need to say anything. I knew something he didn't. Colleges, especially the ones offering full rides for athletes, don't play around with drug tests. I'd already had to pee in a cup for my internship. I told him straight up, "Bro, you better chill. They're going to test you when you get there." He just laughed it off. Relax.
They want me.
They'll look the other way. You're just jealous. Yeah, okay, sure. Because that's how college athletics works. They just wink-wink when you show up smelling like Snoop Dogg's tour bus. So I just let him talk because I knew this was one of those situations where you don't need to say much. You just wait. And trust me, the wait wasn't long. Fast forward a couple of months. Tyler's senior year is wrapping up, and my parents are basically treating him like he's already on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Every phone call I get from my mom is the same script. Tyler's coaches are so proud of him. Tyler's scholarship is practically guaranteed. Tyler's going to do what you never could, Jason.
Cool.
Meanwhile, I'm grinding through grad school and a brutal internship that actually drug tests me. But whatever, I just kept my head down. Anyway, his dream college requires all incoming athletes to pass a physical and a drug screening.
Shocker, right?
I warned him months before. Dude, they test you. Don't be stupid. He just smirked and hit his vape like he was starring in a PSA for bad decisions. Then came the letter. My mom was hyped, saying the school emailed Tyler and wanted to schedule his test. She's on the phone with me, all giddy, talking about how this is just a formality and they can't wait to send out the acceptance party invites. I just said, good luck with that, because what else was I supposed to do? Sure enough, Tyler fails. Not like borderline fails. Full-on fails. Dude probably hotboxed the bathroom before the test. When my mom called me after, I swear she sounded like she'd just watched her favorite football team lose the Super Bowl in overtime. They took back the scholarship, she wailed. They said they can't offer him a spot on the team anymore. I literally had to put the phone down because I started laughing. Not a little chuckle either. Full, Joker in the alley laugh. Of course, my parents didn't find it funny. Dad went off about how these schools are too strict and how Tyler's whole future is being ruined by one mistake. Keep in mind, this was the second test he'd failed in like 3 months. But sure, just one mistake. And guess what? They still somehow made it my fault. Tyler couldn't pass the blame, but my parents looked me dead in the eye and said I'd probably been a bad influence on him. Like, never mind the fact that I'd been off at school 2 states away, grinding just to cover my own tuition and rent without a dime of help from them. Apparently, Tyler failing a drug test was because of me. And then, as if that wasn't insulting enough, my dad actually had the nerve to suggest that I should give them money so they could make a donation to Duke University and smooth things over with admissions. That was his grand plan. Not to hold Tyler accountable, not to let him face the consequences, but to try and buy his way back into Duke with my hard-earned cash. It wasn't that they had no money. It was that every extra dollar went straight into Tyler's sports pipeline. Priorities, not poverty. Tyler, meanwhile, was devastated. Not because he regretted smoking. Nah, he was pissed he got caught. He stomped around the house like Thanos just snapped his scholarship away. My parents were acting like the world ended. I guess in their heads, it did, because their golden child's whole identity was tied to that scholarship. They had been bragging about it for months. Told every neighbor, every distant cousin, probably the cashier at Target. Now they had to face the music. I heard my mom crying in the background about how embarrassing it was to call Aunt Karen and admit Tyler wasn't going to Duke after all. It hit me right then. This wasn't even the end. This was just the start of the crash. Because my parents weren't about to accept that their golden boy had messed up his own life. No, they were about to go full ride or die to keep him on that pedestal. A week later, my dad calls me up. He's got that fake calm voice he uses when he knows something is bad, but wants to spin it like it's no big deal. He goes, so, we've been talking with Duke's admissions office. You know, the idea we talked about earlier? They said if we make a generous enough donation, they'll probably overlook this little hiccup with your brother. I laughed because I thought he was joking. Like, haha, good one, Dad. But nope. He doubled down. He actually followed it up with, we're going to need you to pitch in since you're not doing anything important with your money anyway. You've been paying your own way through grad school, right? Well, just think of it as helping your brother get the future he deserves. I just sat there in silence for a second, my brain buffering like an old dial-up modem. They never gave me a single dime for college. I worked 2 jobs, ate ramen for dinner 4 nights a week, and juggled classes with night shifts just to keep the lights on. And now, after years of ignoring me and throwing every spare penny at Tyler's sports obsession, they wanted me to cough up the little I had so they could bribe Duke to take him back. I told him flat out, no. Absolutely not. I paid for my education on my own because you wouldn't help me, and I'm not about to fund Tyler's second chance because he couldn't stop smoking weed for a month. That's when my dad lost it. He snapped. Full volume, open hands, the whole thing. You should be ashamed. We're offering you a chance to fix what you started by being a bad influence, and you can't even do that. We'll take a loan without you, he spat.
Cool.
Do that, I said, my voice ice cold. Dinner was silent after that. Mom sniffled into her napkin. Tyler smirked, like he'd already won. I put my keys on the counter because my pockets were full and went to the guest room to grab my bag. Wasn't staying the night. 10 minutes later, I come back and the keys are gone. At first, I thought Dad pocketed them to prove a point. Then I heard the engine outside. My engine. Tires chirping like someone who's watched way too many Fast and Furious movies. I hit the front door just in time to see the car turn at the end of the street, way too fast for a residential block. My mom goes, "He just needs it for the clinic." Like that explained why her son with a history of failing drug tests was driving my car at 9:40 p.m. on a Sunday. I took Dad's truck, didn't ask, and followed the route to the main road. Night air, empty lanes, and then hazard lights up ahead. A crowd of kids in hoodies, one of them waving his arms frantically. The car was nose first into a light pole. Hood folded, smoke hissing. Both airbags popped like busted marshmallows. Tyler was on the curb, clutching his leg and swearing, pupils dinner plate big, reeking like a skunk rolled through a pine forest. One of his buddies kept saying, "Bro, you said you were fine to drive." EMT strapped him to a board. The officer asked whose car it was. I said, "My parents'." He asked if Tyler had permission to drive it. I said, "No." He took the keys without asking. The officer wrote things down without looking at me, like he'd seen this movie 100 times. At the ER, the doctor came in with the imaging and didn't bother with the gentle talk. Tibia and fibula. We'll need to pin it.
He'll walk again.
But competitive athletics isn't realistic. Mom started bargaining with the surgeon like it was a customer service desk. Dad paced, red-faced, already muttering about bills. Tyler went quiet, which was new. Insurance. The policy didn't cover him driving it, so there was no payout for the car and no deductible for the hospital bill. Though the premium still jumped after the accident report. And that rehab waterfall brochure? Nobody was flipping it open anymore. Back at the house, Dad tried one last swing at me. "If you had just helped earlier." I cut him off. "Your plan was a lawyer, a consultant. My plan was accountability. Only one of those works when he's high, behind the wheel." He didn't answer. Couldn't really. In the end, they didn't get a single dime from me. I stuck to my no, and that was that. So, they went ahead and took out the loans on their own. Stacked them right on top of the ones they already had for Tyler's backup school, plus the surgery bill, plus the insurance premium spike from the crash. By the time it was all said and done, they were drowning in debt. All self-inflicted. All because they refused to let Tyler face reality. Thanksgiving rolled around, and honestly, I wasn't planning on going. After the whole pause grad school and bankroll your brother's miracle package stunt, I figured I'd earned the right to ghost them until Christmas at least. But then my aunt called. She's the only one in the family who actually checks on me without an agenda.
"Come by," she said.
"We all want to hear about your new job." So, I drove down in my new car. This one was fully mine. No strings. Nobody holding it hostage. And this time, nobody could take the keys unless they grew an extra pair of hands while I slept. When I pulled up, Tyler was already visible through the living room window, sprawled on the couch with his brace propped up on a pillow. He looked miserable. Not in the "poor kid, what a tragedy" way. More like he'd just realized the world wasn't going to bend for him anymore. Inside, the vibe was weird. Normally, family gatherings were basically highlight reels of Tyler's future. Dad bragging. Mom gushing. Tyler grinning like a politician at a fundraiser. This year?
Silent.
My dad looked 10 years older. Mom had stress lines carved into her forehead. And Tyler barely said a word. Dinner starts. People make small talk. My uncle, the one who doesn't sugarcoat anything, finally asks, "So, how's Duke? Thought you guys were all set." You could feel the oxygen leave the room. Mom fiddled with her napkin. Dad cleared his throat and mumbled something about plans changing and exploring other opportunities. Meanwhile, Tyler stared at his plate like the mashed potatoes held all the answers. Then my aunt, bless her, decided to stir the pot. She looks right at my dad and goes, "So, how's all that tuition working out? Must be tough with Duke off the table." You could have heard a pin drop. My dad's fork froze halfway to his mouth. Mom started rearranging the green beans like they were suddenly the most fascinating thing in the world. Tyler shifted on the couch, his brace clunking against the coffee table. Dad clears his throat. We've had to make some financial adjustments. Loans, you know, but it's an investment. He said investment like he was pitching Shark Tank, but his eyes looked tired, like a guy who's been calculating interest rates on the back of junk mail. Aunt just raised her eyebrows. Loans for Duke when he's not even going there? That's something. She didn't even sugarcoat it. You could practically see Dad shrink 2 inches in his chair. My mom mumbled something about how Tyler's worth it. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there, quietly chewing on turkey, watching the whole empire of denial collapse in front of extended family. And then, the twist of the knife. Aunt turned to me. "Jason, you're finishing grad school soon, right? Didn't you just get a job offer?" I nodded. Laid it out plain. The position, the salary, the benefits. "That's fantastic, honey. You must be so proud." I glanced at my dad and caught it. That jaw clench. The look of a man realizing the lazy disappointment he ignored was the only kid actually standing on his own 2 feet. Meanwhile, his star athlete was busted up on the couch, bleeding money. No Duke, no scholarship, no car, no future. After dinner, I set my keys on the counter while grabbing pie. Same spot Tyler had swiped them from months earlier. Nobody touched them this time. Everyone knew whose they were. Tyler muttered something under his breath about, "Must be nice." I didn't bite. Didn't need to, because the scoreboard was right in front of us. Tyler, no Duke, no scholarship, no car, no sports career. Parents, drowning in debt from lawyers, rehab consultations, surgery, and loans. Me, grad school on track, job locked in, car in my name, nobody holding it hostage. No gloating necessary. I just grabbed my coat, jingled my keys loud enough for Tyler to hear, and left. Driving home, I realized something. My parents always said Tyler was the future, and I was the mistake. They built their whole lives around protecting him, fixing him, paying for him, and all it got them was a broken leg, a wrecked car, and years of debt.
Me?
I was the black sheep, the afterthought, the kid who had to figure it out alone. And because of that, I'm the only one who doesn't need rescuing now. Funny how that works out, isn't it? Tell me, what would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you have helped them, or would you have walked away like I did? Let me know in the comments below.